The right stuff. Here's another one of those VFX tips that I shouldn't have to say, but it still needs to be said, not only for new people and students, but also for some people that have been around for a while. If you get notes from the client or there's notes online for your project that you're working on and you don't read them and you do the wrong thing, you could waste a day, you could waste a few days of work. You could even waste a couple of weeks of work, and I've seen all of those done before just because people don't read what they're supposed to do. And for me, it's really alarming and disenchanting and sad and pathetic. And when things are written down and people just don't read to do it, and it could be like just reading through the storyboard if you're working on commercials and analyzing it very carefully what it's supposed to do. If you're working on a film project, read what's supposed to go on. If you're working on the effects, you can read what the compositor's notes are, what the lighter's notes are about the project. It might help you do your part better. For example, if you're working on an effect and you do it like with a red fire, and then compositing turns it to blue, could well be that you're rendering it the wrong color and you should be making it blue and not red from the first place. Because every time you do a color change, you're going to degrade things a little bit. And so just read what you have to do. I have a classic example. When I was in Singapore, I did some work, quite a bit of work for Saatchi and Saatchi when I was there. And the main producer I was working with, he went on to bigger and better things. And so the junior producer who took over and sent me a storyboard and asked me to quote it. And I would go through the storyboards, I'd read everything, I'd look at all the pictures, because I was looking for those gotcha things that were going to cost me extra work or time later if I didn't quote it. And so, they could say, well, it was in the storyboard. Well, if I didn't quote it. So what I would do is I would get a storyboard. I would read through the storyboard very carefully. And then I would make notes about everything that I saw that was supposed to be done. And then I look through the storyboard and make notes about visually everything that was supposed to be done. And I would have questions based on that. And so I got this one storyboard from the junior who became senior producer. I got this kind of angry phone call back saying, well, why did I do a treatment of their storyboard? Which means, why did I add stuff onto it? And I said, I didn't add anything onto it. I just rewrote in my description of what I promised to do. I wrote in there what was already in the storyboard. The phone kind of went silent, and I never heard from them again. So this producer had not read the storyboard carefully enough. And just by me going through, listing what I had to do, being very specific about it, because I had to do like my time analysis and my cost analysis of projections, estimating of what was going to be done. I did that, but this producer had not done that, and I guess they got embarrassed by that fact. But I'm glad I did it because I protected myself from later getting burned by doing a lot of extra work that wouldn't have been in my quotation. So that's like working as a freelancer or as a running a small studio or working on commercial work. But even in a large production, I see people that don't read the notes about what the supervisor said, what was early in the concept. I was a CG soup. I was working on a bridge destruction, and it was kind of I'm not sure what it's called, these metal bridge where there's like a cage that goes over the road. And it was a war movie. And so in the story and the script, which we had access to, these soldiers strategically put it was a drawbridge. So they strategically put a dynamite at the two places where the joints were, where they hit, where the bridge would draw up. So then the drawbridge part would fall down. And one of the guys I assigned to work on this effect, began doing research, and he did their YouTube research of finding and looking for what should be done. But he looked for bridge demolition, and so I should have gone over with him uh, what was going to go on. Luckily, I caught him, but I caught him after a few days. But he found demolition of a bridge, which is like demolishing an entire bridge, so you could break it up and haul the metal away. And so the whole bridge was going to be blown up. So there was like small dynamite placed all over the bridge, not only the base, but all on the supporting beam so they would break up into smaller pieces. So the first time I looked at this, the whole thing just shattered. But in the story, they didn't do that. They didn't put dynamite everywhere for demolition. Well, I mean, they did demolition, but they weren't doing like for salvage. They were placing the dynamite just enough to blow up the bridge so that, as they escaped across the river, they wouldn't get followed, in time. And so that wasted, it didn't waste a terrible amount of time, but it was just an awful lot of extra work that was done that didn't need to get done. And it just comes from not carefully reading and researching what you're supposed to do. So please read and review and do the right stuff. Now, if you like these tips that I'm sharing with you, please share my playlist, either TikTok or YouTube. Share it with your colleagues, with students, with your other students, with your friends, with your producers, because I'm trying to, based on some of the 40 plus years of work experience I've had, doing both computer graphics and just graphic design.